So these classroom sessions are just as good as, you know, a lot of the trading university due to what we cover. So I strongly recommend on the weekend, you know, taking the time to, you know, check them out and catch up on some things you might have missed. Furthermore, a lot of the questions we get from people is how do I identify a good stock? How do I put together a watch list? And, you know, how do I determine if I should buy and sell? And it can be hard because, you know, you don't want to go online and read the news and feel like you're just taking tickers from Yahoo Finance or CNBC or something like that. So the other thing that's great about our classroom sessions is we review, you know, charts on a nightly basis, and we talk about what to watch for. And I guarantee you, and I'm going to show you in a minute, that if you just keep track of some of the tickers we review in our classes, you'll come across some good setups. For example, on the end of last week, we reviewed DOMK, UA, VPIG, you know, so on and so forth, EEDG. Just from the classroom session on May 3rd alone, okay, we alerted, or excuse me, we didn't alert, but we reviewed DOMK, okay, and we talked about, you know, the chart, and that was on May 3rd, which was last Thursday. So then the next day the stock opened at 170. So you could have bought it at 170 right at the open, you know, or even at the high 180, and it hit a high of 488. So, you know, over 150% gains there on DOMK. That same day we also talked about EEDG. EEDG opened the next day at 2.1, and then today it hit a high of 5.6 for, you know, again, 150% gains. And then also VPIG we covered on that same evening, and the next day it opened at 110. Today it hit a high of 175 for, you know, 60-70% gains. So even if you don't ask a question and you know, you don't think there's a need for you to watch the classroom recording, people send in good charts. And the thing that VPIG and DOMK and EEDG have in common is if you go back and you watch the video, we actually talk about in the video the possibility for all of these moves to happen and lay out the criteria for support and resistance and whatnot, and show that if it can maintain certain criteria, that it could potentially make these big moves. So that's the first thing I wanted to go over. Second, I just wanted to do a quick lesson on dealing with options and how to calculate premium, okay? So premium, what it is premium is the price you are paying for the right to own something at a later date today. So options, remember, they deal with expiration, okay? So you're paying for the right to own something by a certain date, and you're buying that right today, okay? And the price you pay for that right is going to be called the premium. And premium is very important to understand, because what we do is we trade premiums. We make our money off of premiums rising and falling, okay? So if you take SPY, for example, which closed at 135.35, or that's where it is after hours anyway, okay? So the 135 puts on SPY expiring this week are trading for 60 cents, okay? So that means for the right to be short SPY at a strike price of 135, by the end of Friday, you have to pay 60 cents for that right today. So can somebody tell me then what is the break-even point on SPY? If the strike is if the 135 strike put is going for 60 cents, what's the break-even on that put? Right, very good, good stuff. So what's going to happen if SPY stays above 135 all week over the next 2 days? There's only 2 more days until expiration. What would happen to that put trading for 60 cents? Exactly. It'll go to zero. It'll be completely worthless. So if SPY closed today at 135.40 or so, and the put premium, the break even on the put is 134.40. If we just do some simple math here, that tells us that, let's see, that's exactly 100 points, right? So 135.40. So that means we're paying 0.7% in premium right now with this example, right? So the way you would calculate your premium is you first have to figure out your break-even price, right, or what you paid in terms of real value, right? And then once you calculate your break-even point, subtract your break-even price from the current price, and then divide the difference by the current price. And that's your break-even. And that's the premium that you are paying. And that is for puts. Now for calls, instead of subtracting, well, no, yeah, we'd still subtract, because here the 135's closed at 128, so that's 136.28. So we're gonna subtract 135.30 from 136.28, and then divide it by the current price, and that will tell us the premium we're paying on the call side. Okay? So that's very important, because some people see this at 60 cents, the 135 put for 60 cents, and then they see the 133 put at 17 cents, and they say, oh man, that's much cheaper. That's a cheaper price premium, so I'm paying less in premium. Really, that's not true. Why isn't that true? Why aren't you paying less in premium by buying the 133 for 17 cents than you are buying the 135 for 60 cents? Anybody have that answer? Right, exactly. Trader 91 and Ty, you guys are all spot on. Because it actually has to move bigger. And our break-even point now, instead of our break-even point being at 134.40, our break-even point lowers to 132.83. Because remember, it's about where the strike price is. We're paying for the right to be short at 133 by week's end. So now we need a pretty big drop in SPY. We need about a 2.5–3% drop in 2 days. So you're actually paying more premium even though the price is cheaper. So don't confuse the price of the contract with how much premium you're actually paying. So that's something I wanted to point out. Okie dokie, so the 4 charts, we'll do RARS last for obvious reasons. DUTV, first one. Nice uptrend here. However, it's come on very, very low volume. So it went up on really high volume, and it's uptrended since on very, very low volume. So I don't, while the trend is nice, today 20 million shares at 002, that's 40 grand. Okay, yesterday's volume was a little bit better, but it was only 60 grand. The day before, again, it was 60 to 70 grand. So I don't really think there's good opportunities in stocks that aren't very liquid, like this one, because you have to play with less money. Because it's not as liquid, it's going to be susceptible to bigger moves, which can work in your favor if it goes to the upside, but it can also work against you if it goes to the downside. Okay. So as far as support and resistance, it did put in a lower low today, and it did kind of break this trend, this little short-term trend that it's been on for the last week or so. So until volume returns, there's just not much to talk about with this. We need to, we've struggled with this resistance point here. So we need a high volume move above this resistance point, which is at 0022, in order for this chart to really provide us with anything, any type of opportunity worth taking advantage of. ORYN, this is another one that we caught around 80 cents or so, and it's already moved about 50%, hit 120 today. So very nice. I really, really like the high volume here. And it closed well off the highs, but in my opinion, that has a lot to do with RARS, because if you look, so ORYN started selling off right around 1345, which is 145, 150. And RARS, that's right when all the volume started coming in. It was right around 145, 150. Or yeah. So, I'm not as concerned that it closed off the highs, because, what this was is people saw RARS and they dumped their ORYN to jump into RARS, and we know that they had profits to do that with because of the move it's already made. So that doesn't concern me as much. I actually really like the way this chart has set up. I mean, very big volume, traded over $3 million today, so that's the type of liquidity we like. And the volume is the highest it's been today versus the other 2 days. And the price action was the best. What do I mean by that? Well, from 73 cents to 93 cents, that's a 20-cent range. From 86 to 102, that's a 16-cent range. However, today from 99 to 121, that's a 22-cent range. So we had our widest range today. Why is that good to me? Because it tells me that the demand that's coming in is impacting the price very favorably. And it tells me if the demand keeps up, the daily ranges are getting greater, which leads me to believe we could have an even bigger move. For instance, DOMK, you can see, like on this day, for instance, when it had the high volume and it made the biggest daily range, that was your first sign that if this thing has a high volume day, the daily range could really explode. And that's what you saw on these 2 days here, from 180 up to 488, okay? LUXR, same way. Well, not as much, I guess. The daily ranges weren't as big on LUXR. What about STVF back here? Yeah, so STVF showed flashes too. On this day, on March 21st, on the highest volume, the daily range went from, 10, 15 cents a day to then on this day, the daily range was 31 cents. So it showed you the potential for a much bigger range and in turn, a much greater move if demand had a similar showing like it did on this day. And then sure enough, on these 2 days here later in March, you had the range just explode. So that's what I like about ORYN from that perspective. As for support, there's the obvious that we've put in a higher high and a higher low 3 days in a row. So that's the first thing we want to keep watching for. And this low here, the RARS low, let's call it, because that's when it started, it dumped because of that, is at 106. So that's our first support. And then you have below 106, you've got the today's low of 99 cents, to the high of 107. So 106 and then really around $1, and we're picking that range because of all this volume within the first 5 minutes. There was demand there in that range, so we believe demand would still be there, and if there isn't demand still in that range, then it would be a cause for concern. As for resistance, we've got this high at 115, and then this high here at 120. Above 120, you're just going to have to be logical and think 125, then 135, 150, so on and so forth. But this, to me, is showing some real potential of maybe a similar move to an LUXR or an STVF or an STEV, something similar. It's got that type of feel to it. XRMB, I remember this one from long ago, around 25 cents or so. So, nice action here recently. These last 3 days, the volume is the highest that it's been since back here in January, so that's great. Also, look what we have here again. The daily range was up to 6 cents today. That's not a lot. However, yesterday's daily range was only 2 cents. The day prior was 2.5. The day prior was 5. The day before that was 5. The day before that was 3.5, 3 cents, 5 cents. So we haven't had a 6 cent range on the daily chart, in a very long time. We had it here on the 5th of April, but that was only on a trading day of 23,000 shares, so no real liquidity. So again, just like we talked about with ROYN, we like this because it's telling us that the range is starting to expand, which means demand is starting to impact the price in a even greater way than it has recently in the recent history. So that's our first clue that XRMB could be getting ready for a big move. So what I would say is you want to look to see if this volume continues tomorrow. Now again, like we've talked about with some other stocks, you do need to notice that this stock goes through long stretches of inactivity throughout the day. So if you're a very quick trader, this probably isn't a good one for you. But if you're somebody who likes to trade and do a lot of other stuff on the side, maybe you're trading from work and you gotta get some other stuff done, this could be a good one because the recent history suggests that it's not going to be extremely volatile during the course of the day, which is good for people who can't pay as close attention. So that's what I noticed. So you want to see, similar volume, and you want to see these 15-minute volume spikes continue to be greater than 100,000 shares to signal that demand is continuing to increase even as the price is rising. This is another one. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes to 75 cents to $1 sometime soon. As far as support, it hasn't gone below 50 cents all week, so that's going to be our key, staying above 50. And then the granddaddy, RARS. First, I'll talk about the chart, and then I'll just give some other general thoughts as far as what to do if maybe you didn't buy in today, and so on and so forth. So, obviously, big move today. We first noticed RARS on February 22nd, around 18 cents, and then again on March 6th, we emailed it out at 17 cents. So, it's been on our radars for a long time. The reason that it was unique to us was because they had the same accountant or attorney, I believe, as AMWI or SNPK or something like that. It was some similar connection to a previous awesome penny stock pick. So this is pretty simple. Major volume between 45 and 50 cents. Above that range, we had good volume, but relative to this volume here from 140 to 215, 220, it really wasn't anything, okay? So 45 to 50 is going to be the key support for this. This low at 45 cents, 445 will be the support everybody's going to watch. Below that, you could see a shakeout back into the 30s in my opinion. In the more immediate term, you've got these late afternoon lows right around 55 cents. So 55 cents and then 45 to 50. 45 to 50 is much more important than the level at 55. As far as resistance, you've got today's high 59, and then the next level, logical level in my opinion, would be 75. Above that would be $1. When you're below $1 and above 50 cents, resistance points kind of work, psychologically every 25 cents in my opinion, when you're going on all-time highs, which this is. Above $1 and you're at all-time highs, then it's really every 5 to 10 cents. Now, there's a couple things that we'll talk about. So, a lot of volume today, 55 million shares. However, that is far lower than the volume on SNPK the first day. It's far lower than the volume on NSRS the first day. And it's far lower than the volume on AMWI the first day, the last 3 picks for them. But we need to point out that this volume came at much higher prices than any of the other volume. So the amount of dollars is greater because it's at a higher average price, but still it's not nearly as much as SNPK. Okay, so all that means though is that for whatever reason on this first day there's less demand for this particular stock than there was for something like SNPK. Now as far as awesome penny stocks and penny pick and those guys, they haven't emailed it out yet. And will they, won't they? We'll find out soon enough. Now, if you're not in the stock, just like any stock, you need to have a plan. If your plan is to not buy this until one of them alerts it or comes out with it, then you should stick with that type of plan. But my emphasis on plans really has to do with the stock and the volume and the price action. To have a plan based on somebody else typing up an email and clicking the send button, I don't know that that's a good habit to develop. Even in the absence of their alert, you still want to come up with a plan based on the chart and based on supports and resistances and volume, like we talked about at 45 to 50 cents and the lower volume here in the afternoon versus this range here. And then if you can do that, it'll make it that much easier to trade RARS successfully when and if it is emailed. Okay. Now, second of all, in regards to if they are going to email it or not, if you take a simple look at time and sales from today on RARS, you'll see that there was a 1.4 million share block and a 1 million share block, I believe. Let's see. Look at that, 400K block, that was probably Dr. Stock. Time and sales is very important because it shows you the size of each trade. And that will let you calculate just how much money is actually flowing through the stock, okay? So the bigger the blocks, you know, the more we like to see. So a 500K block, that's you know, really big. That's a good size block. 800K block, it's a big block. And I know for sure there is definitely a million share block somewhere around here. And then, like I said, I did notice a 1.4 million share block. Blocks of that size, I typically only associate with awesome penny stocks. So, you know, while they haven't sent the email out yet, I've got to believe that they're going to be alerting it. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't alert it tonight to maybe cause a shakeout. And what that would do is that would get some shorts in the stock. And we know that having shorts in highly promoted stocks can create very profitable situations because they can set up for short squeezes. Now, it's all about having your plan, because we can sit here and speculate on what they're going to do with RARS and how they're going to run it or who's going to run it. The bottom line is somebody's doing a promotion, and they have a plan. So don't worry about what their plan is. Just have your plan. Let them have their plan, and you have your plan, and you know, we can both do well. They're going to make their money. I'm going to make my money. I don't really care about any of the promotion stuff. That's all just icing on the cake and allows me to have more information. I was really disappointed that when we first alerted RARS today, a lot of people were just caught up in, oh, is it the pick? Is it the pick? Whose is it? Whose is it? It's like, guys, who gives a damn? You could have bought this thing at 45 cents or 40 cents or 39 cents when all this huge volume started trading and sold it at 55 cents while everybody else is still wondering and concerned if it's been emailed out by somebody. Who cares? Okay? It's really irrelevant because volume and price action tells you everything you need to know. If you didn't buy, I saw ORYN, people were also speculating, oh, is it the pick? Is it their pick? Who gives a damn? Look at all this volume we saw trade around 75 cents. Volume and price action is going to tell us more than our email inboxes are going to tell us, okay? And there was still a lot of money to be made on ORYN. GWBU, same thing. You know, people were speculating, and you know what? Who cares? We made money from 40 all the way up to 70. The less you focus on external factors like an email, and the more you focus on your own trading, the better off you'll be. It's as simple as that. And I don't know about you guys, but 55 million shares tells me more than enough in order for me to make profits off this thing. So that's how I feel about RARS at this point. And yeah, that's about it. All right, guys, so that was just short. Those were the only charts we had. I'll post this video this evening, so everybody have a good night.